everything that we ever need, health-wise, mental-wise, emotional-wise, we have it all within us. And that's something that most people don't realize. We don't have to look for outside things. We don't have to look for this pill or that pill or guru or our teacher. Again, there are the wise people who can guide and help along the way, but the true wisdom, the true guidance, it's not in the head, it's in the heart.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to this Wednesday episode of A Call to Leadership. I'm Dr. Nate Saul, your host, and I'm so glad you are here. Today, I'm going to release a previously recorded interview. It was actually about a year and a half ago, and I hadn't yet released it, from Dr. Sergey Sorin, who is one of my clients and just has become an interesting friend in the space of leadership. He is a holistic doctor who has such great, vast wealth of knowledge on how we can live healthy. I'm Dr. Nate Sala, and this is A Call to Leadership. Dr. Sergey Sorin, so good to have you on the program. What a blessing. What an inspiration. You know, we've been together for, going on 2 years now as we, share in our plight to help people find freedom. We were just talking about this before the show started. And, you as a guest on the show is a real treat, because I don't think you're the kind of person that's going to pull any punches as a physician, as a medical practitioner, but also as a person with deep philosophy of understanding of the human condition and your desire to help the human condition not only be better, but be transformed.
And we'll get more into this, but there's the big concept of freedom: mind, body, spirit. Being free from all of the, forgive the expression, all of the bullshit of the world. In other words, all the crap, all the nonsense. Now, I'll stay professional to a large degree, but some things it's kind of hard to say. The world is
tell it like it is.
Unnecessary stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's just dive right in. I mean, why
Let's
even?
do it.
Let's just not even mince words. But as we dive in, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because our listeners, our audience, they are, and including myself, we desire to know this, where purpose comes from in us. You as a physician, you as somebody that wants to peel the layers of maybe things that are not true to find truth.
Yes.
Where does that come from? As a child growing up, did you always have that desire? Tell us about, your background.
Well, interestingly enough, thank you. I grew up in the former Soviet, former Russia. So that's a completely different world, completely different system. And it was interesting. I grew up in a medical family, so I always knew that I was going to be a doctor. It was when I was asked when I was a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you mean? Of course I'm going to be a doctor. My grandmother was a doctor. My uncle was a doctor. My mom was a nurse. But it's deeper than that. Not every provider, not every doctor and nurse has their heart in the system. My family has. And this is what I learned from the very beginning in a different system. I also grew up as a child as a very sensitive soul. And actually, as a matter of fact, I had many spiritual experiences. And now that I think of it, I had out-of-body travels and visions and things of that nature, things that of spiritual nature that I could not explain at the moment. And as a matter of fact, I had to shut down my communications about those things because I was labeled the weird kid when I started sharing some of these things. So I learned the hard way, so to speak, not to open up too much in that society, but in any society, really. But it came really full circle after my journey. The short of it, when I was 12 years old, my family immigrated, ran like a bat out of hell to the freedom. There we go, to the freedom of the United States, and it was wonderful. It was amazing. My mom became a nurse as well here in this country. I went all the way through medical school and became a family medicine physician. Then I started practicing emergency room medicine because family medicine as a concept, and we'll talk about that. That's another detour potentially, is completely, terrible is not the right word. Primary care, the way it should be, it does not exist in this country under the current healthcare system. Nor is the healthcare system in any way, okay, go ahead, please, yeah.
I want to hear about that. But before we get deep into it, there was something that you said, and it really is important. You came here to the United States when you were 12 from Russia. What was the year approximately? What was happening at the time?
Yes, thank you. A trip down the memory lane. This was 1988, and this was when the Iron Curtain came down. You're familiar with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is when the Soviet regime, the communist regime, basically decided that they could no longer, whatever they decided, however they decided. It's just the borders opened up, and our family ran like a bat out of hell, literally. We dropped everything. We left all the possessions. I mean, we couldn't take anything with us, but it didn't matter. That's another factor. And that was another early training to let go, not to hold on to material possessions. And I'll talk about the spirit, mind, body, or mind, body, spirit. Yeah. But go ahead, please.
What was there fear? Well, I mean, what was going on where you felt like your family had to leave?
Back at the time, there was religious persecution. My family grew up in a Jewish background at the time, and that was not a good thing to have on board, especially in the former Soviet. There was financial, there was all sorts of problems. I mean, for a family of professionals, my grandfather was an engineer, my grandmother was a doctor, my mom was a nurse. You would think this is a great educationally, gifted family, and lots of other people, but we were basically surviving.
Wow.
And we were not even surviving because my grandparents and my family did not believe in taking bribes and living under and doing things, I guess, sort of on the black market, even though that everybody else did. So that was a disadvantage for us. We had a moral code. So we just weren't a good fit for that kind of a system.
Did you see it coming? I mean, I know you were only 12, so it may be hazy, but was it something that was a preparation in terms of this Iron Curtain dropping? Or did you see the writing on the wall as a family? Were your parents saying, look, this is coming, we need to be prepared, or was it sudden?
No. It was gradual. It was ongoing. As a matter of fact, and there's a lot of deja vus in our current society. I'm going to stay clear of some key words so that we don't get censored. But the one concept is learning to read between the lines, and that's something that we grew up learning very well back in the former Soviet. In other words, if the news said it's going to rain, guess what? Don't worry about the rain. Or if it said it's a beautiful sunny day, bring your umbrella. And just literally, that was the main thing about that. So you actually learned to understand and to read the context, not just the content, but the context. But I think I may have gotten away from the point.
No, that's good, because many that are listening that grew up in that time. I was a teenager, and we remember, many of us, almost like 9/11. Remembering when President Reagan famously said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Yeah. And it was for many of us, it was more sudden. Now, granted, I'm sure those, in the military communities and the intelligence communities saw it, but the general public, this was a monumental event.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
On this side of the, of the Atlantic.
I'll tell you, back growing up in that environment, I was actually physically thrown out as a kid, 12-year-old kid, thrown out of a second-story window. It's a good thing that I took martial arts back then, so I knew how to fall and roll and all that stuff. I broke my arm, but that was the.
Who threw you out of the window?
Yeah, school.
Oh my goodness!
Public school. Yeah.
What was the reason? Were you being bullied for your
religious and personal and otherwise? Yes, absolutely. And by that time I was already a big fan of learning how to defend myself if I could. But at some point it just gets a little too much. But the bottom line is we. By the time it came for us to leave, it wasn't so much. Well, should I go? Should we not? Should we go? Not go? It was. If we're going to live, if we're going to survive in this physical form, then we got to get out of here.
Wow. Now, what was the idea, or what was the mindset of the United States at the time? What were people thinking about the U.S. there in your area?
Well, technically, as a kid, and I can tell you my perspective, the propaganda, the marketing, so to speak, about the evil West at that time was so strong that I literally was looking for basically for devils on the streets. They just the horns and tails. I was like, I don't see any horns and tails. I'm kidding, but not. Again, that it's it's amazing how much the government can pump garbage into your head and how much we actually believe.
Wow. And I'm sure that's not just in Russia.
Yeah. Yes. Not just Russia.
Yeah. Not just Russia. Yeah.
Read between the lines.
Right. So you get to the U.S. and of course then you pursue high school. What was the transition like? Did you feel persecution here, or did you feel a welcome community? What part of the United States did you move into? I'm very curious about this.
Absolutely. It's very, very interesting, just biographically and how things change. So back in Russia, I was persecuted for being Jewish, even though I had no idea what that meant at the time, because we weren't allowed to even practice that or know what that is. Since being here in this country, I just want to make a statement. I've become a minister in the Science of Mind Church for spiritual healing, and that's part of our philosophy in clinical and otherwise. So I have a full range of experiences, but coming from that background, being persecuted for being Jewish, even though not knowing what the whole thing was about, even though all we knew is it was a bad thing. It made your life difficult. That's all I knew. So I didn't want it at that time. So then I came over to this country, and interestingly enough, when I was still a teenager, 12 years old, and I ended up get back into the same pattern of having to fight for myself and defend physically and otherwise, because I was a Russian. So it's human nature, just the best and the worst of it. What can I say? It's yeah.
So you got scrappy. So you were definitely holding your own, right? And so here in this new context, you were like, okay, well, I can take care of myself.
Compare it to what happened back in Russia, where there was sticks and stones and hammers and literally all sorts of weapons and broken bones. And I mean, the bullying concept in the United States, that was a joke for me, literally. That was a joke. It's when there was an attempt to do something in terms of that to me by folks, they learned the hard way. You don't mess with the people who've been through a lot worse than that. But that was a different. Yeah, Russia was a good training ground.
No doubt, yeah. And so you had tremendous resilience in adversity. You grew up around that, and I'm sure that helped frame your view of the future, that you could overcome any obstacles. I wonder, in the United States, we have this mindset. I'm a first generation. So, my parents were immigrants. They came here for many of the same reasons, to find a better path, the land of opportunity. Of course, did you feel when you were growing up that was the case, or what did you feel that it was okay? What was your vision on the United States as far as potential versus what you had grown up in?
As soon as I came to the United States, my heart just opened up. I worked hard. I was by the age of 16. I was so driven. As a matter of fact, I was so driven that from 12 to 16, in 4 years, not only did I graduate from high school at 16, which was an accomplishment in its own, but I was also at the top of my class, and I started to teach English, tutor English to native speakers. But again, that was my driver and my motivation. It was just, I'm here.
Remarkable.
Freedom to be my best. And that's what I chose to do. And then
do you think that was an advantage? Do you think you had an advantage because of what you came out of? I wonder sometimes, because I noticed that immigrants, not all immigrants, but certainly many immigrants, look at the United States versus where they came from. They think, wow, I can, if I apply myself, if I have the aptitude and if I have the attitude, I will have the altitude.
Absolutely. At least in the United States that we knew at the time. Absolutely. Yeah. If I've come across many people, and very good people, nothing wrong with them in terms of anything else, but if you have everything handed to you on a silver platter, if you are, if you don't have to work, if you don't know what life's difficulties are, then the smallest thing is going to become as difficult as, well, it's the most. On one hand, you have to understand, I've taken also a lot of training courses as part of my development, professional and personal, and there's a very thin line between personal and professional, because who you are, the being, guides the doer. In other words, we can get into a lot of different aspects. When the person becomes tough, becomes strong, knows that they can overcome anything, you can take on any challenge. You can achieve any height. Likewise, or the otherwise, if you can have somebody who's got all of the opportunity, all of the money, the possibility, potential, it means absolutely nothing in the long term, because that's the easiest way to go from up to down. But that has a value too in itself, because when you drop down to when you hit the floor, so to speak, now you got something to bounce up against. Now you know what you're made of. And a lot of people don't understand the opportunity in challenges. Well, that's where the beauty of life is. As long as you get up and get going.
I believe that wholeheartedly. In fact, I believe the statement, failure is not final, it's feedback.
Yes.
It's only final when you give up. And I believe that statement that you make, we can look at it living between two pains. When you're down, there's a pain of giving up, and that's painful to give up. But there's another pain of getting up, and you have to decide which is more painful. And I believe that for me, and perhaps for you as well, giving up is far more painful than getting up ever will be. So we will always get up, no matter what the pain is.
Exactly. I'll give you another example when we get to it. I just recently I had 3 interesting episodes in my life, basically near death, frankly. The last one, and the first was colon cancer, stage 3. When I was, back in 2007, I was told I would have 2 years to live, with or without chemo.
My goodness.
I was already a full-fledged physician. I had a house. I had, I was married. I could have died right there if I believed that. That's called a negative placebo, nocebo. I'm cancer-free, and that was the point of when I said, I am walking away from conventional. Not that I walked away from it, but I'm still practicing emergency room doctor. But I said, there's more to this than what meets the eye. And if I'm gonna be dead, I'm gonna be dead. I'm not worried about that. But if I'm gonna find out about life, I'm gonna go beyond this model. So that was one. Then I had several terrible car accidents, including one recent one about in March. Not the smartest thing on my end. I mean, I was tired. I could make all sorts of excuses, but one way or another, I ended up go 15 feet up in the air, took down about 3 small trees, missed all the big ones. Oh. I mean, literally, there were angels all around, angels. And the only thing that happened after that accident, I literally let go. I mean, when I realized what was happening, it's okay, I'm done. And that's not the first time I've had this kind of experience. Now it's time to end those kind of experiences. It's too much of that. Lifestyle is important in how you do things. But I was at peace. I was literally at peace. But I did end up with it's called burst fracture of lumbar third. I was nearly paralyzed at the time. I had a surgery, metal. I got metal in various parts of my body as a result of several things. And it's basically, I made it a decision that I was going to get back on my feet no matter what, ASAP. So within 3 weeks, and I did a number of things out of conventional, obviously, but within 3 weeks, I went back for a 24-hour shift in emergency room, working on my feet. Not the smartest idea, but I did it. And now I'm back in martial arts, going for a black belt in another system. Now I still have a flexibility issue, which is getting better, but nothing is going to stop me. Nothing.
Wow. So you brought something up that I think is really important, especially you've worked in the ER you've experienced so much as what you've observed, as well as your professional training. And even in my circles of leadership theory and development, and you mentioned the mind. How important is the mind in the body's health?
Yes. This is an opportunity, and thank you for asking the right question. The right question is the key to everything, and that's why for everybody out there, ask the right questions, and you'll know when you get the right answers. The entire concept of holism, I can just talk about that we can talk about it for days, for weeks, for years, but I can also summarize it rather briefly. We say there's a very common expression, mind, body, spirit. That's wrong. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely wrong in terms of the order of importance. Spirit, mind, body. And let me outline the layers. And this is the same approach I use in the healing. This is the same approach we use, and we have over 36,000 successful outcomes in our practice over 5 decades. I came on board about 6 years ago, fully, with everything. And that's why we're seeing success where there's been failure in the conventional healthcare system. That's because the medicine is missing the mind, and medicine is missing the spirit. So how do you start, and how do we work with a human being? Not just I can talk about diabetes, I can talk about high blood pressure, I can talk about anxiety, depression. I can also talk about success in life. I can also talk about, this is the same exact principle that determines whether a person does well in life or does not, whether it's professional, personal, family, relations. It's the same exact concept, the same principle. And this principle is very simple, very basic, and it goes something like this. We actually have a meditation or exercise that we use for people in the self-regulation retraining system that I'll mention. It's called biogenics. One of the main exercises is, who am I? What is my true nature? Yeah. And it goes something like this. I have a physical body, and I am more than my physical body. It's a pattern. I have a mind, feelings, and emotions. And every thought is a prayer, and I am more than my mind, my feelings, and my emotions, because the mental drives the physical. So you could say that it's all a head game, so to speak, but it's more than that. Who is playing the head game? Who's control? And in other words, who is in charge of you? Who is the captain of the ship? And where is that direction coming from? Is it coming from your spirit? Because ultimately we're spiritual beings having a soul. This is my final understanding. And I had several near-death, out-of-body experiences. I've had several very wild and wacky experiences I wouldn't wish upon anybody. But now that I've had that, I've been blessed with certain understandings, certain downloads. Right. And one of the downloads came after my car crash, where it wasn't the place where I went conscience-wide. It was basically a 10,000-year download. That's the best way I can say it. I mean, it's probably more than that, but just the understanding of everything, the laws of nature, the understanding of how the consequence, in other words, consequences work. In other words, how the health works, how the body works, how everything is interconnected. And just like the hair is connected to the toes through a connective series of tissue and fibrous elements, the same way there is the absolutely inalienable connection of the spirit, mind, body. And
so let me ask you this. So through that car crash, now would you consider it an awakening of understanding, a deeper understanding, is there more to it? Do you believe that there was an influx of new information that was liberating and gave you greater wisdom in this area? Tell us about that process.
The best way to say it is, there is no words I can use to describe what I understood, what I felt, what I got. But the message that I received, the real clear message, obvious, is, first of all, I'm not done, because that was a death sentence right there. There's the speed and the mechanism. I just don't see people surviving that when in my emergency room practice. So that's number one. The fact that I walked away with a certain injury, but I'm walking and I'm back in circulation and life again. That's another miracle. But more important than that, it was an understanding and a purpose. And the purpose was always there. It was just that it came into my understanding and clarity. So it's not that I didn't have it before. It was just a question of time to tune in. And once you tune in, we all have the capacity. We all have the guidance. We all have that innate ability to connect to the everything that we ever need. All the resources we ever need. I'm just going to put it very shortly. Everything that we ever need, health-wise, mental-wise, emotional-wise, we have it all within us. And that's something that most people don't realize. We don't have to look for outside things. We don't have to look for this pill or that pill or guru or our teacher. Again, there are the wise people who can guide and help along the way, but the true wisdom, the true guidance, it's not in the head, it's in the heart.
Well, yeah, and Jesus himself said that the kingdom of heaven is within you, and that's interesting. And you, as you're saying things, it's bringing up different thoughts. And when Jesus said, your faith has made you well, and you're talking about the spirit first, in wholeness and wellness, and so that was certainly it's echoing the model, or at least the words that Jesus even used himself as he was, a great healer in the first century. And I wonder. And what I'm hearing, I absolutely love this passion because, I think part of what you're saying is you don't have to have a near-death experience to understand how to really reach this wholeness that's available to every person.
Exactly. It's a question of opening up. Now, the problem with me is that I learned to fight, through the life and to achieve and to, in other words, my concept in life, and I'm changing this. I'm really changing that because I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but whenever I would see a wall, I would go right through it. Actually, the more walls I saw, the better I was at breaking through them. Just through the sheer determination, the sheer drive, the sheer oomph, right. But that was a personality that formed during the difficult, formidable years in a difficult environment in the former Soviet, and it served me for a very good purpose for a long time. But then I realized something is that it's not up to me. This is a vehicle. I'm a vessel. Now, everything that I have, all the tools, all the qualities, everything that I've learned, everything I picked up is there for a purpose. And, there is actually, speaking of a statement, there was a beautiful song, Jesus, take the wheel, in other words, guidance. So I am not here. I'm not here to do anything on my own. I'm just here to be guided. I'm here to do the best I can as a human being, as a doctor, but more so than as a doctor, as a human being.
Mm-hmm. And in that we must release something that we generally find very precious to us, and that's control.
Yes.
And I think, some hold on to control for many different reasons, one of them being fear. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very real concern because fear, generally defined, is the belief that something which threatens us can be harmful. Mm-hmm. But I think that sometimes what we fear the most sometimes is the most liberating, is walking through that passage.
Exactly. I do. I do a therapy. In addition to, there's conventional part of the practice, there's holistic part of the practice, there's all sorts of things that we do on working on all these layers. One of the therapies that I created based on the combination of what I took in terms of neurolinguistic programming and understanding this human psyche in its many different dimensions and ways. And I've taken every training that I could have taken, along the way. I'm just a curious being, just show me some new piece of information. I want to learn about it.
I love it. So
it's called optimal life therapy. And the concept behind optimal life therapy is that I put a person under mild hypnosis, and again, people can learn to do that on their own. We have tools and ways that you can actually hypnotize yourself to get to where you need to be on your own in terms of doing your own exercises, mental, emotional, physical. But the concept is, I get people to step back. And for example, I'll give you an example. And this is a good general concept to begin with. Let's say you're watching a movie, right? Let's say you're in a movie theater or a production and there's actors. Now visualize the fact, or just imagine that you are an actor and you are in the role and you think that is what is your identity. You are in it, you're feeling it, you're breathing it, you're having the emotions, the anger, the frustrations, the happiness, everything that comes in this role. But that role has a certain script. And the question is, if an actor was to come out of the role and step back and say, who is writing the script? Where's the director?
Yeah.
You realize that the director is also you. There's input from various sources, but the director is also the same person. And this is the question of control, and where that comes in. Again, control is a very tricky statement, word. By stepping back, for example, I've developed this ability of I could be sitting here right now talking and enjoying this beautiful, amazing conversation with you right now. And at the same time, I can actually step out, so to speak, figuratively, and just watch as a director. Wow, look at Sergey, look at Nate. This is a really interesting conversation. And, let's say if it's great, great. If it's not great for whatever reason, wow, how interesting. And then as a director, you also get to rewrite the script if you can identify certain patterns. Everything is about patterns. Where we came from, that's a pattern. Past is a pattern. Present is the result of the pattern. Future is going to be determined by the patterns that we're having right now. Change the pattern right now, right here. That's one of there's a few major concepts that we work with in our clinical practice. And one of the main things is get out of the past. That's where all the bad things are coming from that keep us holding back, the baggage, the unnecessary. Don't worry about the future. We don't know what the future is going to be. There's a million possibilities when you open your eyes in the present. So that's the key. Be in the present, be here now, let go of the fear. We don't have the luxury of anxiety, depression, stress, uncontrolled stress, anger, depression, so on and so forth. We just don't have the luxury. We have one life. It's a beautiful thing. It's meant to be enjoyed. It's meant to be lived. This is part of the therapy, but it's also part of everything that we do. The concept.
Yeah.
Step back, rewrite the script of your life, repattern it, and step back into it and just live your best life and continue doing it.
I wondered, first of all, it's amazing just the concept of thinking about having that level of mental, physical, and spiritual discernment to be able to do that. And I wonder how many people would think, my life is too noisy, or I have too many distractions, or how could I ever possibly do that? All these self-limiting beliefs come into play, or my past is too, you don't know my past. It's too painful. I have to live in it. I'm so worried about the future. I can't think of the present as a gift. And I believe that's exactly what it is. And we'll play on words. That's why it's called the present, because it's a gift. Yes. What do you say to that listener now who is inundated with the negative self-talk?
I'm going to say this
about how they couldn't.
Thank you, Nate. Absolutely 100% correct. And this is the same concept in terms of finances. You work in the financial world in addition to everything else. You do amazing work otherwise. And I love talking to you about all sorts of things. But a person can determine that they're going to be poor for the rest of their life. Just by their actions, their approach, their beliefs, their let me say something. BS. What does BS stand for? Another play on words. Belief system. That's another abbreviation. Most people's belief systems is truly a BS. And that's the first thing that you got to get rid of. And I do have a trick, and I have a little exercise or suggestion, homework for people who are addicted to negative. Because at some point I know I was, and I had to overcome that. I did not have the luxury anymore of doing that. And that's what I teach to my clients. If a person has a certain negative belief, such as I cannot do this, or I am, in other words, anything negative, or not willing to exercise, not willing to eat properly, not willing to take care of themselves, not willing to take care of their finances, and there's all sorts of excuses. And this is not just medicine. This is life. This is patterns of life. I am applying these patterns in my field, which is clinical, wellness, health, mind, body, spirit, holistic. It's applicable in every aspect of life, every discipline, everything in the universe. Say to yourself, if you're not willing to be in the positive, this is what I tell people right as they're sitting here in front of me. Say, I love being miserable. I love being frustrated. I love being poor. I love having nothing. I love having poor health. I love being on multiple meds. I love the fact that my doctor can basically cut me off from life by simply refusing to refill this drug or that drug, whatever the pharmacy. Say it. Literally say it. Be honest with yourself, because that's exactly what it is. And if it doesn't sound right, then cut the crap and move on to something that is actually right. That's all there's to it. By the way, I do when I have my patients and my clients, I speak very direct. So I like I say, I don't hold anything back.
As you should, Dr. Sorin. Wow. Yeah. Wow. What a yeah.
And I
mean, there's so much.
I say this to myself too. I mean, I'm a human. Inevitably, during the day, I end up in a situation where I'm full of crap myself, and I'm the first one to say, "Sergey, cut the crap."
Right.
That's it.
Yeah. And you can usually, and I would imagine, based on your self training, is you're able to identify it quickly and dispel it quickly.
That's the key.
Well,
that's the key. And the training that we work through with life is learning that the number one thing is, the most important thing is, know thyself. Know thyself. Then you can work with the rest of the universe around you.
Yeah. The Latin for that is nocete ipsum, which here's the thing about people that get it. That phrase is a central phrase for those who understand the route to, and I'm not going to say just prosperity. I don't want to use that word in the wrong way, but it really is. It's a prosperity of life.
Life. Success.
An abundance of life, really. And that's what Jesus said when he said, the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you should have life and have it to the full, or have it abundantly.
Amen.
Right? So this is not a new concept.
Amen, brother.
It's not a new concept.
Absolutely.
And so, this goes back to vision.
Yes.
This goes back to vision. So a lot of my research, especially during my PhD work, was on vision formation and vision operationalization. And so much of the literature revolves around how we understand what we believe is possible. And so, the idea of believe, I've heard it said like this, which is an interesting way to use the word believe, is to be living. So what we believe is really what we are living. So if we say we believe something, we're not living it, we really don't believe it.
Exactly. Words without action, without consequence. Yes, that's not.
Yeah. So vision in itself, it's imagination by definition, because it has not made manifest, but it's made manifest in first our spirit, our minds, right? And then we can communicate that vision for those who would like to share that vision with us. But what you're saying is, okay, look, if you've got a negative vision of everything that's possible, just go ahead and speak it out. And then you begin to realize just how ridiculous it sounds. And in a very direct way, right? And of course, we're sensitive to situations, but at the same time, what life do you choose to manifest?
Yes.
What are you willing to speak? And then what are you willing to actually take action and achieve?
Perfect. And it goes further. For example, somebody says, "Oh, I've been trying to lose weight. I've been trying to do this. I've been trying to, follow the regimen. I've been trying to listen to this, foundational self-relaxation exercise or biofeedback. Trying. The word try to me is one of the most worthless words in English dictionary. You can try all day long, but the question is, it's just an excuse. So it's a question of do or don't. And if you're not going to do, then again, be honest with yourself. Be honest no matter what. Be frank, because you're not going to cheat yourself out of anything other than your life. So I'm not, okay, so just say it. I'm not willing to take care of myself. I'm not willing to exercise. I'm not willing to eat well, and I don't care about my life and health, and I want to die a terrible death. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I literally have people do that in front of me and to say, okay, does that sound right? Yes, no, okay, well.
Yeah, no, it sounds really right. And then, I love how, I think you echo the immortal words of the great scholar Yoda, do or do not do, right? There's no try. Yeah. And I wonder how much of this is rooted in things that are very important to us. And let me explain by illustration. So I wouldn't call myself a health nut, but certainly I live a healthy lifestyle.
You do well. I know you. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And I'm talking about, the eating and things like that. But as well as a healthy, spiritual and mind lifestyle. But let's just talk about eating. And part of that is rooted in something that's extremely important to me in terms of my vision for the future. So my father, who didn't ascribe to a healthy lifestyle at all, he drank, he smoked, and he did what he wanted. He had a very sedentary lifestyle. In my family, the Salas, the men, generally had heart disease, and they usually died young if they didn't take care of themselves. And in fact, my father, when he was 62 years old, he did pass away. He didn't want a stint when he needed to get one. He was very stubborn. He just, he ate very poorly, and he lived a very poor life in terms of taking care of his temple that was lent to him.
Just real quick, let's come back to the temple. The concept of a body is a sacred temple in the service of the divine. I want to come back to that at some point, but thank you, please.
Yes, let's do, because I'd love to understand your understanding of that. So he dies, and this is in 2004. My son's born in 2007. He never gets the joy, and I never get the joy to see him hold my son. Now, my father made his decisions, and certainly I hold no ill will. This was his life, and that was his choice. Because literally, we live in choices, right? Every decision we make as adults, it's a choice. Yes. Every outcome is based on a choice or a set of choices. Yeah. Indeed. So looking at that, of course, when I was younger than him, even I was involved in sports because I knew this was a possibility. I was an athlete, and I knew that had I gone down the same path with those choices, my vision of the future would have ended the same way unless something else happened, like a car accident or whatnot. And my son, he would not get the joy to see his father hold his child. Of course, all things being equal. Of course, he's only 14 now, and he says, "Dad, I'm never getting married. I'm not having kids anyway. So it doesn't matter. Eat what you want."
Yes.
But
I understand.
But I don't. So when we're at a restaurant, and that extra plate of French fries or that 5,000 calorie meal comes across, and there's exceptions to that, but generally I'll say, you know what, I'm going to pass on that, because I know the outcomes will lead me to a worse future state than I desire. And so it's an easy no for me. It's there's like a no-brainer. It's an easy no. And I tell that story because perhaps there's folks that maybe don't have that deep of a desire in their heart to be connected with well-being. There's nothing in their future that they can see in the moment that's so incredibly important that they're willing to, the cost-benefit analysis doesn't make sense for them, right? They don't know what the benefit is.
Actually,
they can't envision it. What do you say to that person?
There's a very interesting comment that my medical partner, my mentor, Dr. Norm Shealy, who happens to be the founder of holistic medicine, told me when I joined him about 6 years ago. Almost 7 actually. And he made a very curious statement that I didn't understand at the time. What he said is, most humans have a death wish, and they are not willing to lift a finger to save their life. I wrote that statement down, and I've been wanting to challenge him on that, because I have a hopeful, optimistic perspective on humans for the most part. But you know what? He's 100% correct. Most humans, and when I'm not talking about active suicide, which is, again, suicide is a terrible thing. But most people are not willing to sustain, support, and do things for their life to make life worth living. Let me give you some more statistics and some more numbers. 40% of people clinically are depressed. In other words, they are living in a personal hell. Another 40%, in other words, 80% total. So another 40% are subclinically depressed. In other words, they're walking around like zombies, sort of surviving and doing what they need to do, their duties and their responsibilities, but they're not fully alive. And then they die. Everybody dies. But again, the question is, have you lived? Have you lived? And this is when, so I had my awakening when I was starting, at many different points, but the several that stand out, the colon cancer in 2007. When somebody tells you, hey, you're dead in 2 years, regardless one way or another, plus minus the torture of chemotherapy. Oh, come on. It's just, that's when you really just have to decide. Do you subscribe to the philosophy and you die? because that was my option right there. But instead, what I did was I told the guy, and I remember still that my very first reaction is that oncologist who came into the room, very nonchalant. Okay, you're going to be dead in 2 years. Have a nice day. It's like basically, you know what? If I hear another word out of you, you're going to be dead before I am. Okay, that was my literally my first reaction. I've never saw anybody get out faster, even though I was connected to IVs, basically. But just again, that was, I knew in my heart, I knew in my gut, I knew in my very being that was not the truth. I knew it.
You weren't willing to accept that reality.
No.
And I wonder, I mean, I don't know what studies have shown, but there's got to be real research that identifies the psychological aspects.
Absolutely.
Of
there's a whole bunch,
healing.
Literally. Dr. Shealy, my medical partner, has put together a system back in the 70s. Now, interestingly, I'm noticing a lot of coincidences. So around 74, that's when I was born. I'm giving away my age here. Dr. Shealy put together, developed, and designed a program called biogenics, self-regulation and retraining of the central nervous system. He was a neurosurgeon by training. He invented TENS unit, the dorsal cord stimulator, and he was just dealing with too many broken people. Too many broken people. Broken not so much in terms of the body parts being broken, but the disconnect from the body to the mind and to the spirit. And there was no fixing them. There was absolutely no fixing them. So the idea of biogenics or self-regulation is you want to get to the place where you're aligned, you're centered, you're in control of yourself, you're the captain of your own ship, and you are the one who determines basically, there's a lot more to it, but the goal is to open up to the divine, allow yourself to become a vessel and to serve the purpose that we came here to serve, in other words. And that includes being happy and healthy and our optimal self.
And this is where the temple comes in.
This is exactly where the temple comes in. The physical body literally is a temple. And even just think of it this way, most of us take better care of our cars than we take care of our bodies. Wow. I mean, how many people would put crap into their gas tank? You wouldn't. But at the same time, you can replace the vehicle, you can replace your body, and it's even more important so than that.
Indeed, and I've always had the mindset that our bodies are resilient, but they're not impervious.
Yeah, and there's a consequence to every action.
That's right. That's right. And so let's just have a conversation around that. I mean, what is the crap that we are putting into our bodies? What is it doing to us, Dr. Sorin?
Okay. Well, let's start with the environment. Let's start with some basics. Water. Water is essential. If anybody still is utilizing city water, you're drinking fluoride. Fluoride is a metabolic poison. It's going to kill every endocrine system possible and otherwise, including thyroid. That's one. Okay, so first of all, and by the way, I'm just going to make a statement here, and I've been advised not to go too controversial in order you say certain words so that we can stay on the air when we won't get shut down. But again, just read between the lines.
We fly below the radar, at least for right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. That's the other thing I learned from the former Soviet. You just. So I think we're in a slight advantage here as opposed to a lot of the folks who are experiencing stuff. And like I said, period. Okay, sorry, I got distracted by the. Yeah,
this is good. This is good.
No, it absolutely is. So let's talk about the crap. Yeah, let's come back to the topic. Fluoride. Now, the other thing is Roundup. You wouldn't normally eat Roundup, but you're actually eating it in the breads, the pastas, the potatoes. It's literally in everything. Now, that's just one of the many poisons. Now, if I could just start going down the list of poisons and terrible things that happen to humans, including food, processed. Basically unnatural foods, trans fats. my God, I mean, just the excess of food, even if it's okay food. But let's take it further. Let's take it beyond that. There's actually something more important than the food that you take in through your mouth. There's actually it's information crap, the media, the stress of the society, all that nonsense. For every negative thought, for every negative emotion, and I don't know how people don't have negative emotions, or if you don't, God bless you. But with everything that you see out in the media, especially main media, that's poison for the brain, for the head, and then that poisons everything else, because there's a direct relation from every thought, feeling, and emotion to endocrine system, including thyroid, stress response, cortisol, the relaxation, sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous systems, and I could literally go down the list of every organ system that is involved. So that's crap right there. Now, what's in the even bigger crap, and I'm just going to say it very flat and just obvious, the biggest crap that we have been fed is who we are. The true nature of ourselves. And based on my experiences, I have no question, no doubt about it. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, and I'm here to live a good life, the best life, a life of service, to serve, to do what I can, and including myself included. And that is why I'm here. And because I have that understanding, because, again, I've nearly crossed that place of life and death, and it was basically coming back I do believe it wasn't my time yet. I've got no fear of death. I've got no fear of life. And the bottom line is, I'm here to live and enjoy my best life, be the vessel that I'm meant to be. That's all there is to it. So the biggest bunch of bullcrap, so to speak, nonsense that we hear is basically who we are. That's how fear comes in. If a person identifies with their physical body, obviously, you want to take care of your physical body, but that's not who you are. That changes by the minute, by the second, by the decade, and that's not permanent. You don't get to keep that for you have a beginning, you have an end. Thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and so on and so forth. But there's many things we can talk about. Nutrition is a huge topic that we can get into, and I would love to get into that, because we actually have a whole weekend conference on nutrition alone. I mean, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I'd love to share that more with our listeners. There's you touched on something that I think is so incredibly important, and this pyramid, if you will, of thought here, and at the very pinnacle of it is identity. And that's exactly what I showed to people, and I didn't even show you the picture. You got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Yeah. Well, hey, awesome. I guess I graduated for a reason, right? No, listen. There's somebody. I just 2 days ago, I was in a conversation with somebody. We were in a study, and she said, my identity. I misgauged my identity, and I really did not have the freedom to have unlimited potential in my beliefs until I really understood my identity. And she said, as a person of faith, she said, I am a daughter of the King. And of course, this, she said, was a liberating moment for me, because I really began to understand my true identity. And it wasn't the garbage that I was taught as a child that I wouldn't amount to anything. It wasn't the garbage that I was taught in society that said that I had to be, a certain social status in order to have any type of value or worth. It was because of that designation. And she said that this is really where I began to understand what true freedom was, from the norms that are impressed upon me by those who have really no understanding of this higher calling.
Absolutely. Nate, thank you. Beautiful, amazing story. And that is absolutely correct. A person who does not remember who they are can be easily manipulated, pushed around, threatened. There's once you know your true identity, once you know that you are indeed a child of God, you're You're an unlimited human being. I mean, you've got, obviously there's limitations in terms of certain things, but if you want to open up in the present moment, and that's what we teach, that's what we get people to understand in self-regulation, there's a number of tools, there's a number of devices, there's a number of clinical, holistic approaches to get people there. But the point is to, if I were to say past, future, come back into the present, come back into your heart, be here now. And when you're there, open your eyes, open your third eye, which is actually, even in metaphysical terms, all that means is insight. Stop looking out there for answers and look within. And that will give you everything that you ever need. And by the way, based on this concept, we also designed courses and to assist people with personal intuition. How do you trust yourself? And many other ways. But you have to start by realizing that you are more. Without that, nothing happens. You are a slave to your own self.
Wow. Indeed. Yeah. Wow. There's so many thoughts that are going through my mind, so I'm going to try to.
We can go in so many tangents here in so many directions.
Focus my mind. You mentioned something, and let's just circle back around to nutrition. So I'm at the drive-through at McDonald's, and I'm looking at the dollar menu because I'm in a bad spot financially, and that's all I have. And so I think we need to speak to this individual that's listening right now. But before we do that, my niece, it's amazing. She actually listens to her uncle. She said to me recently, she said, "Uncle Nate, one thing that stuck with me that you said, we were at the drive-thru at McDonald's, and I was going to get some nuggets. And I don't know maybe it was McDonald's. I can't remember where, but one of the dollar menu places. And there was, 6 nuggets for $1. And I said, I'm as a person in the financial industry, I wonder, what does it take to make that many nuggets for $1? What do you think the quality is when all the other pieces are put into it? Now, of course, it could be a loss leader where they're taking a loss on a certain product, blah, 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 blah. Let's just take that out of the equation. Whatever it might be. After you pay for the utilities and the advertising and the personnel and the packaging and everything else, and actually in the material itself, to actually, and to be able to profit off of all of those pieces for $1, what quality level do you think it is? And she said, Uncle Nate, I think it probably isn't the best quality. If we can just start there. I said, okay, that's a good place to start. She said, that really stuck with me. That's one piece. But the question is, somebody might say, I only have $1.
This is where we deal with, so basically our clients can spend from anywhere from thousands of dollars with us and, for things that are absolutely worth it to absolutely nothing. And one of the things that I enjoy doing is the pro bono type work. In other words, or in other words, getting people basic direction and guidance for life plan. So what are the things that cost money? We have devices. For example, we have the pulse electromagnetic field device that puts the brain into a certain wonderful place that costs a certain amount. Again, it's wonderful, it's worth it. But if you don't have the money, guess what? You can't do that. There's supplements and things that stabilize the biochemistry of the body. Well, guess what? If you don't have the money, you can't do it. You have to put something in, there's something about the macros, the protein, the carbohydrates, and the lipids that is necessary for human survival. And until you get to the place of people who live on air, which is, again, that's, God bless them. I don't know how they do it, but most people I know don't have the capacity. So you get to the basics. Maslow's, of needs. It starts with a basic, essential shelter and care. Physiological. Right, yeah. Until you do that, you can go higher safely. Mm-hmm. But the thing to understand is there's something that every one of us has, and it doesn't cost a single cent. Number one, realizing that we are truly free. So start from the position of who am I? Ask yourself that question. And when you do that, there's so much that's going to open up to you, including the possibilities to open up your world and enhance your living by changing different patterns and doing different things. But let's say for the moment, all you have is $1 and you have to get some food. You can always make the right choice. In other words, you don't have to eat a whole bunch of crap just because it's available. You wouldn't put the crap into the gas tank of your vehicle. I mean, if you only had $1, you would put certain amount of gas that is good for the car, right? So same thing. Just think of it in that respect. And if you have to go, if you go without food for a while or find some other alternative, guess what? There's something called intermittent fasting. I've done that before. Back in former Soviet Russia, we used to starve on a regular basis. I don't know if you remember that, but it's like there were times.
I remember the lines, the bread lines and the different lines being so long, and I didn't know if it was U.S. propaganda or if it was really the real case.
Exactly. But it's like it was the real thing. It's just personal stories. As a kid, 12-year-old kid. Before that, actually, I remember basically trying to save. I was walking from a store. I was able to secure a bottle of milk in a glass container. The bottle broke, and I was basically my hands were bloody from picking up the pieces of glass and trying to hold on to the milk. It wasn't about the blood; it was about the milk. But we had nothing. I mean, it was that kind of a situation. But it's the bottom line is, no matter how bad things are, let's not forget who we are and that we actually have a choice. Stress management is one of the most essential things. And if you train yourself, something as simple as autogenic training, biofeedback, very simple exercise. I'm happy to share that with you. It's a wonderful thing for self-regulation that gets you basically 6 basic phrases. My arms and legs are heavy and warm, and you feel and you get into the place where you can actually, your arms and legs are heavy and warm. That's your parasympathetic, the opposite of stress, the opposite of clammy, cold hands and feet. That means relaxation. Next one is my heartbeat is calm and regular. My breathing is free and easy. My abdomen, greatest chemical factor in the world, is warm. My forehead is cool. That means basically, no matter, the world can be falling into a terrible place all around me, or crisis everywhere, and I'm okay. I'm okay internally, and I'll handle whatever I need to handle. Last but not least, very important, my mind is quiet and still. Getting your mind to a place of quiet and still is a prerequisite to receiving the message, to understanding what it is that we have, what we've been given, the blessings, the responsibility. The word responsibility, another play on words. I love how this conversation is going. Responsible. Responsible is responsible. It doesn't mean, oh God, I have to do this. There's nothing we have to do. It means we are able to respond, and we choose to respond. Responsibility.
I'm feeling more at peace just for that exercise.
And this is just a small sample. We have it set to binaural beats, which is the frequencies that support the brain. It's an 18-minute exercise. And what we do is, for example, with that exercise, is we teach people over daily. You do this daily once or twice, and it literally sets your nervous system, autonomic nervous system, and your ever conscious mind into a place of, I'm at peace. Now, once I'm at peace, I can receive the messages. I can understand what is being given. I can listen to my fellow humans. I can do what is best. I can actually open my horizon to the 360 range of options instead of just a narrow vision, tunnel vision of the patterns that we fall into and we think are the only possibilities. That is when you become an unlimited human being. And then based on that choice, you open up more choices. And then you can take it anywhere you like in terms of health, in terms of wellness. And then afterwards there's the whole program that follows it called biogenics for self-regulation, 68 various exercises. But the bottom line is you got to get through the door. You got to realize you're more than your physical body. You're more than your mental and emotional. You're a spiritual being with capacity to change all sorts of patterns, to become who you wish to become, to achieve. There's very few actual hard limits in the world. Very few. Really.
Phenomenal. I'm rarely left speechless, my friend, but this is, and just the beauty and the simplicity. And of course, I ascribe to this. It begins with choice. And so the choice, just going back to
to the drive-through at McDonald's, and of course McDonald's is not the enemy, right? But it's the concept of having no choice and saying, no, I do have a choice. And not only do I have a choice, I'm able to respond with responsibility. I'm able to respond in a way that leads me, and of course, not only myself, because we live in community as creatures together. So along the way, I'd be able to shepherd and take others with me along this journey to wholeness by the choices I make. And I don't have to choose defeat. I don't have to choose or even accept. Maybe I feel as though I just have to accept the negative outcome. I can say, let me find a better way to fuel myself, whether it's my mind, whether it's my spirit. In fact, Jesus in the 8th chapter of John, you've heard the phrase, "The truth will set you free." Of course, people have heard it all over the world. It's a common saying, but many people don't know who said it or where it came from. In fact, Jesus said this. He said, "The truth will set you free." But he starts. It's actually a 4-part model for freedom. So this is in the 8th chapter of John 8:31, 32 through 37. He says this: "If you abide in my word," so that's step 1. In other words, if you live with me, if you spend time with me, you are truly my disciple. So you become a student. A disciple is just a student, right? You become my student when you spend time with me. Of course, that makes sense, right? Basic stuff. And then you will know the truth. So he says you'll know what truth is once you become a student, but you have to spend time with me to become a student. And then he says the truth will set you free. So truth and freedom go hand in hand. And then, of course, then he doubles down later and he says, "And if the Son has set you free, you're free indeed." In other words, he's establishing his authority. But I think this is a real practical aspect of this conversation, because where are we? Who are we following? Who are we a student of?
Yes. That's perfect. You nailed it. Exactly. That's it. I want to share something with you. This is, we give the stock lines. This is our philosophy. Let me see if I can actually do this right. Can you see?
Yeah,
okay.
It's right there.
How am I feeling? This is laminated. So we give this to people. I carry this in my pocket. So I'm just going to talk about it. How am I feeling? Am I good? Am I okay? Yes. Great. Smile. Life is good. Enjoy. No, it's not okay. Now here's where it comes in. It becomes a decision. Can you do something? Can you fix it? Can you address it? Let's say you only have $1. Can you do what is your actual practical choices? And what can you do about it? And if you can do something about it, do it. Do everything you can. Take every reasonable step. Take everything that's in your heart and your mind and your capacity and make it better. Whether it's physical, legal, emotional, mental, whatever it is, make it better that you're willing to do. And once you're done, let go. Detach.
Let go.
Because otherwise you're just basically carrying unnecessary junk, unnecessary luggage that is no longer serving. Then you start to get into patterns of PTSD and depression. Those things are not necessary, by the way. It's just not necessary. We choose to carry that. And I challenge people to say, even with depression and post-traumatic, and I've had plenty of reasons to have post-traumatic and depression and all this kind of stuff, is if you ever feel depressed or down, just say, I love being depressed. I love feeling down. Again, just be honest with yourself. But the other possibility here, I just want to make sure I mention this, if you cannot do something about it, if it's beyond your control, it's beyond your, sorry, I'm moving it around too much. If it's something that you're not willing or able to do, let go. Don't carry unnecessary stuff and do what you can within your range. Because the next thing that's going to happen is when you make the right choices, the right series of choices, it's going to open up better choices. We came to this country, Nate, it's our experience. My whole family lived in a very small one-room apartment when we first came here. We lived there I was on the floor my mom was on the floor basically on a towel, literally, not even a mattress, for several years. I mean, you make the choices. For anyone who says you cannot, or it's difficult, or the system, well, you know what? We are unlimited human beings. Make a decision, and by making the right choices, the right set of patterns, you will change life.
Yes. And I love the way you framed even making choices to prepare yourself, such as intermittent fasting and whatnot. I believe small victories build courage. So, you mentioned, so intermittent fasting would be simply, to train yourself with a little bit of deprivation so that you realize, well, maybe it's okay. My body's actually more resilient than I thought. I can go without a meal during the day. And I've fasted for several days at a time. But what does that do? I mean, look at a practical aspect. Okay, I've got $1 today. Maybe I do a little fasting and I have $2 tomorrow.
Yes.
And then that double of an opportunity, then I can maybe put better fuel in my temple, right? I mean, and there's all different kinds of ways we can look at this opportunity to improve. And even so what we're talking about is that adversity that builds our struggle muscles, right? So the struggle in the muscles, but not only us, maybe those we see around us. I mean, same thing, Go ahead.
The most successful people that I meet in health, in terms of achieving health, but also in achieving success, literally, are those who have basically hit the rock bottom. They know what hard times are, and they know how to get up. They know how to get going, and they do. No matter what. That's what it's all about. It's actually a person who's never had a hard time in life, or who's never had a difficulty, that person, at the first sign of difficulty, is going to crumble, no matter how many resources they have.
Mm-hmm.
So a person who has $1 to their pocket can bitch and moan, and excuse the expression, and do all sorts of complaining, so to speak, about all sorts of stuff, unfortunate events of this nature and that nature. We've been there. My family's been there. But instead, how about using it as a driver, as a motivator? Learn about suffering. Learn that you're gonna want to help others when you succeed. It's just and learn that you can overcome.
Yeah. Suffering builds perseverance. Perseverance, character.
And when you're on the bottom, when you rock bottom, you got a solid ground to stand on. Now you can build. That's the beauty.
Yeah, that's good. That's really good. That's really good.
Never give up.
Never give up. Never give up.
Everything is an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that we can build, like you said, build on that, and then also create some obstacles in our own lives to create that toughness. And for example, for years I did triathlon, and I when I trained, I didn't feel like I was actually training until it hurt. Okay, now I'm actually training. And so when I was at my end and I didn't have any more energy, now's the time for me to really reach deeper. And it wasn't necessarily just because I wanted to have, record-breaking times. I was never the fastest guy. But what I was doing is I was preparing myself for when I had difficult situations to overcome, to have the resilience to overcome them later. And so later, for example, as I got older, I started my accounting and advisory firm when I was 21 years old. And when I was 21, I had more energy, just raw, young energy, than I did, 20 years later, 25 years later. But when, in my late 40s, working till midnight and 1 a.m. during tax season, I remembered crossing that finish line during that, 70.3 Ironman and saying, Nate, if you can do that, you can do this.
Absolutely.
And so we've got to put ourselves in a place to where we do have that adversity, where we do have those victories that we can call on when we are struggling again.
Challenge yourself. Challenge your status quo. Yeah. If you think that you know everything that there is to know about life, think again. Think again. Really. That's the best advice ever. There's all sorts of illusions, all sorts of layers. I've had so many layers stripped away. And every time that the layer gets stripped away and I get to the new layer, it's an aha moment. Ooh, this is great. I'm evolved now. Mm. No, it's just another layer. That's
man, Dr. Sorin. There's so much. We haven't even scratched the surface, and I want to honor our time together. So I have to have you back again, because we haven't even started talking about the pandemic and, the social issues that we're having with our physical and mental well-being in relationship to, what's going on right now and what you might predict later. So I need to have you share in this conversation, especially some of the controversies that I know that you can help us to better understand.
And Nate, let me just make a little quick brief comment on the topic, because there's a lot of things that as a doctor, I will get shut down if I say on the radio, if it goes against the narrative.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I'm going to say for anyone who's interested and willing to listen. This entire thread of conversation, you're a spiritual being having a mental and emotional patterns and a physical patterns. Once you realize that you are a spiritual being having, you're a soul, you're having this interesting human experience, you will realize that you've got nothing to fear from anybody. When you realize your essential nature, I can change this jacket, I can change this shirt. In other words, if somebody takes this away, doesn't matter. I don't need a jacket, as a matter of fact. So it's a question of, and it all comes down to the same concept: freedom, and freedom from fear, freedom to be our true self, freedom to live our best life. And if that means stepping out of society and doing things that are outside of society, God bless. But a lot more on that.
Beautiful.
Life is good.
No, absolutely. I would love to have more conversations on that. In fact, remind me thinking about 1 John 4:18. Perfect love casts out fear, and fear has to do with condemnation, and there's no condemnation in Christ. And so, if we believe basically what John is saying, if we believe that God loves us perfectly, and He does, we have nothing to be afraid of. We have absolutely nothing to be afraid of. That's the heart of it. You are just an amazing soul. What an amazing friend. What a blessing. I know you blessed someone today. Before we go, I have one question for you. One day you will be at the mountaintop, the pinnacle, at the end of the journey, at least on this side of eternity, when you're on that great summit. You'll look down, you'll see all of the things that you've done and accomplished, all the people that you've touched. What is one sentence that you will want to be remembered by?
I'm just going to say, I served my purpose. And that's the big statement. Purpose meaning honor the temple that is mine, my body, honor the people around me, do my best to make the world a better place, and remind, not so much tell, but remind people who they are, what they got, and how much power they have.
Wow. Well, you are definitely on your way, and I am so thankful and blessed to call you friend, Dr. Sergey Sorin. What an honor. What an honor. Thank you so much for sharing and being with us today.
It is an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, my friend, I am so thrilled that you joined me on this episode of A Call to Leadership. And before you go to the next episode, especially if you're binge listening, take a moment. I would love to get your honest review right here on your screen. Your feedback is so important. It helps the podcast, it encourages me, and it helps me. It helps me to give you more and more and more value. So I can't wait to read your review. I can't wait to be with you on the next episode. I'm Dr. Nate Sala. This is A Call to Leadership.